made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Transact Card, Align Life, Neuro Infinity, Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 526 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Stephen Conway. If you want to hear the story about how to fix problems in chiropractic, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast, episode 526. We're 5.5 years into this illustrious program, and I know that there's a lot of takeaways today. So get out your pen and paper, sharpen it up, and start making some notes because we're going to get ready to hustle over here at Chiro Hustle. Check us out over chirohustle.com. It's where you can go get all of our interviews that we've ever done. And just really appreciate everybody for supporting this show and what we do. And today we have Stephen Conway, DC Esquire, attorney dude, also chiropractic dude. We're going to talk about some things he's done for the Medicare part of chiropractic and hopefully subdue some people's fear around that topic. And if this guy finds a problem, he fixes it, which I absolutely love up there in Wisconsin. And he's got the CSW. We'll talk a lot more about that. But before we get into his story and how he interweaves his genius into chiropractic, I want to let everyone know the big why. Why do we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle? Well, first things first is the First Amendment, freedom of speech. We've never censored anyone on this platform. And I think that that's super valuable. We believe in truth. We also believe in supporting medical freedom and family health freedom. So anybody's topics that they want to discuss on our show, we make sure they have a platform to be heard, acknowledged, and seen. After that, we do protect BJ Palmer Sacred Trust. If you do not know what that means, go to your favorite search engine right now, pause this interview, and go and search for BJ Palmer's last words, BJ Palmer Sacred Trust. I guarantee you're going to learn more about chiropractic than you previously did just by knowing that we have to guard this and protect it. And then we also support subluxation-based chiropractic. It's almost a misnomer that I have to acknowledge this, but we have to retool people's perception for philosophical purposes, knowing that we're not going to lose our way and that we're not going to change our languaging or our lexicon or the things that make chiropractic unique and non-obvious and the parts that make chiropractic special. And lastly, but not least, we also believe in innate intelligence and universal intelligence, that when man or woman, the physical gets adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual. And with that being said, Dr. Stephen Conway, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Let's play.
Yeah. I am over like emphasis pumped over here just because we really met each other about 2 years ago at a Parker seminar just in passing. And we were just reminiscing on like what you've been doing up there in Wisconsin and what I've been doing over here with this podcast and how we really intercede with each other really well.
We really have different pathways going for the same goal though.
Yeah. And you were telling me offline on our pre-interview chat about your second generation chiropractor. Your dad went to college down in Logan. You were down there. And that's where you met your wife too. So if you would just like share your story, like how you got into chiropractic, that whole journey, and reintroduce yourself to the world.
That sounds good. So I'm very fortunate that I grew up in chiropractic. A lot of people, you don't know at the time as a kid, right? But then when you realize really the difference in how I grew up natural. And my father actually had a very secure job at General Motors in Janesville, Wisconsin. He had a great job, good income, everything ready to go. And then my uncle became a chiropractor. And that was the beginning of the whole chiropractic connection. My father saw what was happening, loved it, got good results. So he personally got good results. And he basically uprooted our whole family. So I went to Logan twice. So we went down when I was a kid, I think it was 5, and my little brother was with me. And so we went through the process. My dad came out, and it was at the time in the 60s when, right, everything was still the quacks were being attacked. And he was just a kind, really kind chiropractor that went back to a small town in Wisconsin and just worked his heart out for his patients and built this amazing practice. It inspired me that this is what I wanted to do. I'm one of 4 children, and I'm the only chiropractor, but I went down to Logan. I checked different colleges, but Logan felt right for me. And I met my wife. Actually, we dissected Leroy together. So it's a real love story when you meet someone when you're your dissecting partner, and true love. We've been married for 40 years, and got out. We actually built a very big practice in Janesville. So very patient oriented. We were seeing 1,000 people a week in our clinic. It was just the 2 of us. Did extremely well. Love what we were doing. We became very involved politically at the time, is when we were trying to get insurance equality. So it kind of gave me the political bug back then with then Tommy Thompson, who was governor of our state and then became Secretary of Health. I unfortunately hurt my wrist, and it's one of those things where I just tried to do everything I could and just was not going to keep going. So, not being a disabled type guy, I decided to go back to law school to see if I could help my profession in the legal profession. So in '94, I was able to get into the top trial law school in the nation. It's called Stetson. It's a little tiny school in St. Petersburg, Florida. So I was one of, I think there's 4,000 applicants for 60 slots, and I snuck my way in, graduated, and then have been able to use my 2 skills with the attorney and the chiropractic passion to help the profession. So that's kind of my quick story of how I got started.
Yeah, I love these stories because it gives you a chance to reintroduce yourself to your friends, families, colleagues, past patients, and it gives you a chance to actually, people make stories about who the heck we are all the time.
No.
until we remind them who we are.
Exactly. You forget sometimes too. You're living in the present right now and facing all the different challenges. And you sometimes, I remember you sent me some things to look at. And I look back, thought, yeah, why did I start? What was it? It was always been a passion for me. And again, I'm very fortunate that my father went into it, because I don't know if I would have found it otherwise. You never know how you would have found these careers that define your whole life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting you bring up present time consciousness and where we are right now. I went back and I was listening to one of the shows I really like by a guy named Andy Frisella, and he's the guy that started this program that I do called 75 Hard. Okay. And I was listening to them have conversations back in 2015, and I was listening to them have conversations back in 2018, and just how free people's tone and their voice was. I feel like we're super tense now. We have a lot of built up, there's a force inside of us that we don't feel so free and relaxed. Our hair isn't just down and flowing right now. We have a lot of pressure and noise around us.
I agree. There's a little bit more noise, but again, every generation has something.
Yeah.
Like when I came out, that's right when the Contain Eliminate was happening in '83. Was when I graduated. So that's when the AMA was trying to destroy our profession. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to fight for insurance equality. We're trying to fight for all these different things. So I think you always tend to forget some of those higher pressures and all the different things with it. But the one thing was nice back then was there weren't HMOs. And so patients came to you based on your skills, your communication, your caringness, and your ability to treat them and really care for them, not based on if I'm in a plan or not. And that was the one benefit I remember coming out. Even though we didn't have insurance equality, we still built these massive clinics based on caring for patients. And we also had to educate our patients, which I think is a difference. Now they're just kind of funneled to you through different mechanisms. Back then, because we're always being attacked and patients came in, I don't want to say scared, but they're pretty nervous about coming to see a chiropractor because of all the things they heard. We really, really had to work hard to educate them on what we did, what was happening. Because we did that, we created lifelong patients that loved us. I mean, there was a difference that they love us. And I notice I do a lot of work in the state capitol now. And I can say for a fact that chiropractic patients will fight for their chiropractor. Medical patients, they're not going to pick up the phone for their medical doctor to help them with an issue. But a chiropractic patient, because we care and we love, I know they will come to our help.
Well, even back in the early history of the profession, when they were jailing chiropractors for practicing without a medical license, the there's many stories of where the patients would come and demand the release of their chiropractor.
Yep.
And they would pick it outside the judge's chambers until they would release the chiropractors.
Exactly. It's that connection we have as chiropractors, and I hope we never lose that. And I was on the NBC board of directors, so I got to go to the colleges for 8 years. And I could see there was a time, I have to admit, there was a time period where I think a lot of people were getting in based on money. They saw there was a good economic aspect of being a chiropractor. And they're the ones I think that have trouble with everything because it's money-based, not patient-based or purpose-based. Mm-hmm. I'm really seeing over the last six or so years, people getting in realize the HMO's there, all the money, all this stuff is not there. They're getting in because they want to help people. And I really see that as the generation coming out now and working is really going to help our future because, again, we have that connection with the patient and we care about them. That's going to help us survive any attacks that's coming in because, again, our patients will be there as part of our team, which most healthcare providers don't have. It's just a transaction for most people. For us, it's actually a passion and it's a family.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that sets chiropractic apart from every other care model out there is people actually, they get acknowledged.
Yep.
They get a proper exam. They get hands-on care. They're not just another number. They're not just another chart. They're not just another symptom.
Yep.
They're not just in because they're trying to get over some type of entrenched illness. They're actually coming to a chiropractor, and for lack of a better phraseology, they're looking for wellness.
They are. They want help. They want to have someone who cares for them.
Yeah.
And chiropractors, we connect really quickly, and they can because there is a trust there, and that's what we're actually trying to help them. And it's just not a number. If you look at a lot of the hospital systems, you have administrators above all these MDs and stuff telling them what to do, and it's a number. You have to see 16 per hour or whatever it may be. In chiropractic, it's just the doctor there, right? It's the doctor and their staff. Their staff care as much as the doctor does. We have great staff in chiropractic. And
chiropractors really value a person's time.
Yes.
If you go to a regular big box medical center, when are you going to be seen?
Yes. Yeah. If you are going to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just it. Is when in a chiropractor you show up, there's a procedure.
Well,
there's systems. There's a plan.
Because we used to see a lot of people, and people used to say, you can't get good quality care in that time period. I'm like, well, maybe you can't, but it doesn't mean I can't. And so we can. Time isn't equal quality. Really, what it is that skill set that you have and the communication you have with that patient really sets the tone and the ability for you to help that patient. And it's not time-based.
And there's a couple things. I've learned the whole system, man. People come in and they want help.
Yes.
And then you're going to say, okay, this is what I found. This is how much concern there is. This is how I can help you.
Yes.
Two things stop people from taking care: time or money.
Yep.
Then you have to fight those objections. And then you say, hey, great. Now we've fixed this and we fixed this. Now let's start.
Exactly.
So it's a very easy system. And people actually appreciate that when you talk to them on that level. And they don't get some crazy insurance bill through the mail, I tell people all the time, you can invest in your health now or pay for sickness later. And if you think that a chiropractor is going to dupe you on a 90-day care plan, try go to the emergency room and take an ambulance.
Yeah.
See what that's going to cost you.
Your savings are there. So you're 100% correct. And that's where that trust factor comes in very quickly with chiropractors because they can feel it in our heart. Yeah. And so the time and the money that you're talking about, those obstacles become less and less because we show the value to them. And so the value becomes a higher focus point than the money. And then once they see really how truly little they're spending compared to everything else and the value they're getting for their health, it isn't really a sale. There's nothing to it. It's really education.
Yeah, it's all patient centered.
It is. It has to be. And the ones that don't, and you can see it. I mean, we're not a perfect profession. The ones that don't, they'll do their things, but usually patients find out, then they have to resort to, the bent pens or whatever hell they use to get people in, right? But most chiropractors, because of what they do, it's a referral base, and that's the strongest base. Our practice was a wellness practice. We had patients that just want to be there. They felt better. They realized coming to us, kept them better. And so they asked to say, how can I do this? It wasn't that we were telling them to do it. They said, how can I maintain this? How can I do it? And that's how we built our practice.
Yeah. And I think that that's the honest way to take care of people.
It felt good to us. We went home every night happy as could be.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I know from both your backgrounds now, because we've had a little bit of chance to warm these microphones up. Chiropractic background, attorney background,
Yep.
and then there's this fun word out there called Medicare.
Yep.
Talk about how you took your two skill sets and helped with that organization.
It actually started with a single phone call. And I still remember, you remember where you were when those things happened. So it was a phone call from the ACA. And they basically said, Steve, we see a tsunami of audits coming down on our profession. Our error ratio is at 90%. We have not figured out a solution. We see it coming. There's only very few chiropractic attorneys in the United States. Can you at least look at this problem, see if you could help us? And I'm like, in my head thinking, I don't like Medicare at all, right? It wasn't my practice. And but I thought I have to help my profession. So I thought, I'm just going to try and find the quickest solution I could to this, because I always look to see if I can find a solution. And I remember looking at it and I thought, okay, most chiropractors, they get a letter at an audit, they don't know what to do. And so I created an audit defense task force where basically if you get a certain letter, then here's a response you can do. Kind of A/B, right? Real simple. And I put it all together. I got different attorneys to help them. I put it on a website and I thought, I am good. I'm out of this assignment, right? And I can go do something I would rather do. And then I got the letter. And it's one of those letters you never forget. So what happened was 800 chiropractors got a letter from, it's called the ZPEC, but it's basically, it's a group that's looking for fraud and abuse. So 800 chiropractors got a letter, and this letter basically said, paraphrasing, but not by much, we've been watching you. We think you've been billing for all these things as active care, but they should have been maintenance. And we want you to go back and look at these 20 patients we just sent to you. We don't want your records, but if you feel these should have been maintenance rather than active treatment, here's how to turn yourself in for criminal prosecution. And when you see that at the very end, every chiropractor who got that letter thought, am I done? Right? Can you imagine how scary it was to have that come in? So the state of Iowa, it was Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, and
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Transact Card, Align Life, Neuro Infinity, Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. Let's hustle.
Nebraska were the states that received it. Iowa put up a webinar. I'd never done a webinar in my life. Right now it's easy for me to talk back and forth on the computer. I'd never done it before, except for this is my first time. So I'll come on the screen. I'm trying to do a webinar. I'm talking to my computer, and I had 800 chiropractors on the other end of my computer wondering if they're going to jail. And I'm like, okay, my little letter, you do this, that, my little program I figured out was not going to help here, right? I realized very quickly this is a very serious problem. And so I was able to work with them, and all those 800, only 2 actually had to go through any process. I found a solution for them. But right after that happened was 2,000 chiropractors were audited in the Carolinas and Virginias. I'm like, okay, wow, the tsunami's here. I can't back out. And so I was appointed with Dr. Jacklitch to chair the Medicare committee. And so what we did is we made an agreement. The person who actually had been chairing it was a wonderful person, but he died of a heart attack. So they were looking for someone else to come in. We said we would come in if we could do it our way. And the other person did fine. I mean, they were really working hard for chiropractic, everything, but we wanted to go a different way. So they really had no choice. So they agreed to let Dr. Michael Jacklitch out of North Dakota and I do this. So what we did is we actually went and met with all they're called MACs. So this is, CMS is the top thing in Medicare. They assign out to all these Medicare contractors. So this would be NGS, Meridian, Cahaba, they all have names, but every state has one of them that they submit their Medicare forms to and their billing. So we picked out one that happened to be in Madison and I had an in with, and we met with them. And through that meeting of going in just a different way, communicating differently, communicating how I did in my practice, right? Differently than just antagonistic. We went in and we were able to start solving problems immediately that had never been solved before. And through that process, we started meeting with all of the different MACs, their chief medical directors. So we always met with the senior vice president or the chief medical director of those organizations. And I can give an example, like when we went down to Palmetto, the entire state, United States, was being denied if you had a Palmetto Railroad Medicare claim. And so we actually flew down to Georgia, met with their top people, listened to why they were denying the claims, showed them an alternative why their decisions wasn't correct in a very polite way. And that night they changed their screen. And that next day, every chiropractor in the United States was getting paid 100% off of one visit. So seeing that we were making progress on each individual claim or each individual company, what we did is we then went to and met with CMS, and we had all of them come into Washington, D.C., which has never happened before, historic really for any profession. We brought all the chief medical directors into Washington, D.C. We met with them. We explained what was going on because I knew it wasn't just chiropractors that was the problem here. I knew there's things on their other side that was going on. And so we basically met with them for 3 years, back and forth, and we're negotiating really what I consider a universal solution. And so after they agreed to it, they asked Mike and I to go and train all their reviewers. So we agreed to this is what chiropractors need to do. And then we went and Mike and I trained all the reviewers. So we had that in ready to go. And then we made a promise to the profession. And Mike and I went out, and I've easily had 50,000 chiropractors come to my program. That's probably when you saw me. I was probably teaching at Parker on that day there. So Parker's put me in the big room. Florida FCA had me down for 3 years straight at all of their things. I've been to as many state associations as I can. But in teaching the chiropractors a very simple way to do this, and we made it extremely simple, knowing the other end was ready for it, our error ratio dropped from the 90s for the first time in decades down into the 30s. And then we got into the 20s. And what that means is all the audits that were happening and all these people are trying to scare chiropractors that they're going to be audited and all these jumpsuits and all the other stuff that's going to come at you doesn't exist anymore. We removed all the screens. A lot of chiropractors think I could only have 12 visits or 20 visits. That's all gone. Everything has just been removed that was a barrier, and an attack on our profession is gone. So now a chiropractor is treated the same as a medical doctor. They're treated the same way, and they should have zero fear of being audited by Medicare. The only way they can audit now is they're really truly an outlier, and it takes a lot to be an outlier. So I kind of want to get that was my goal today, because there's so many experts out there that are still trying to scare chiropractors that the HIPAA guy, all these other guys are out there scaring people that they're going to be out of compliance and they're going to go to jail, which is just not true. It's just not true anymore. So I really want to take that whole fear thing and just drop it down to where it should be. Sorry, it's kind of a long segment.
No. I think that it's super valuable. And because of that momentum, you went and started doing, you opened another pathway in Wisconsin.
Well, there was another thing with that thing. Going back, just one more thing with the Medicare thing. Once we hit, the reason we couldn't get Medicare parity, they're going for that right now, where chiropractors get paid the same as medical doctors by Medicare. The reason they wouldn't do it is because we were only given 3 codes, right? There's only 3 codes they pay for. And we were actually having an error ratio of 90%, where everyone else is around 15%. So like you're kind of goofing up 3 codes 90% of the time. How can we ever give you more codes? Does that make sense why they wouldn't? So as soon as we hit that first 30, the first one we ever got back was Palmetto. I remember being on a stage with Palmetto. We were in North Carolina. I was lecturing with the chief medical director and I to the state association. And she pointed up, she goes, this is when Steve came to our office and you guys were at 90%. You're now at 20%. And she showed the graph right there. And I'm like, oh, awesome. I said, can I have that? And she goes, sure. So I took that and we gave it over, and they took it over to Senator Grassley in National to help us, because then we could say we're not at 90% anymore. We're actually at 20. And then I got Cahaba at 20. Then NGS came down into 20. Meridian, when we got Meridian at 30. So all of them started sending us data that were no longer on the radar. We're no longer going to be audited. we're there. And so then nationally, our national associations can now say the barrier is gone. We're the same as everybody else. We should get full payment for everything we do. So that was kind of that whole impetus to get rid of that discrimination against us, was based on that error ratio, which just this one guy from North Dakota and me worked our heart outs to get. So it doesn't take a whole bunch of people, right? It just takes a few people like you. I mean, look what you're doing by yourself, right? With your podcast here, changing the world using your skill sets in this podcast world. It only takes a few people to make a difference.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. When I meet people in public, in airplanes and airports, at restaurants, my biggest, like, I guess, significance in like culture is Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And I always ask people, I'm like, hey, do you guys know who Joe Rogan is? And they say, yeah. And I go, well, I'm that guy for chiropractic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we have a very unique opportunity here within the podcast world with chiropractic. And I saw where there was a soft spot in the market, and we just went and took it. And we're going as fast as we can, doing as much as we can for the profession with it. But that little bit of acknowledgement for us, it shows that we are making an impact. And when I mention it to people, Dr. Steven, they respect chiropractic more, that they have a podcast that promotes their profession.
It's true. And it's and the way you do it too, because you're using it to benefit the profession. And that's, you'll see a lot of people use it to benefit themselves. Like everything I've done, I really did not benefit. I lost, right? I was away from home all those weekends. For basically 10 years, I was lecturing somewhere in the United States. My wife knew me, but it was rough. But she's a chiropractor, so she understood the purpose and the passion. But once we got all the error ratio down, I only go certain places now because I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't do it for any personal gain. And that's like same for you. This isn't a personal gain thing. You're actually, in our pre-conference thing, I could feel in you that you're doing this to help our profession, which is really respectful, and I really appreciate it.
Well, I feel, Dr. Steven, like we're on different deployments.
Yeah, we're different skill sets. We have different skill sets that we're going for the same target and same goal, right? We're talking offline. You will not find me on any social media. It's just not me. And so, but I admire people that use that skill set, because it is the next generation up. That the younger generation, this is where they get their information. This is where everything's happening. So you're right on that positive track to make that difference.
Well, I just in joke, you said that you had about 800 people show up to a webinar.
Yes.
When they got audited. Yeah. Like if you guys ever want to have a webinar and have 800 people show up to it, audit some people.
Yeah. It was the hard part, and I didn't even know how to do a webinar, right? Also, these questions start coming on the side. I'm like, what is that? I've never done one. I'm like, and so I look up, I go, well, I go to jail. Oh God. I started listening, and the stuff on there, I could just see, because I'm just
the fear.
I was thinking logically how I could help them. I was already on the next step of, all right, we got to do this. I got to do that. I'm working with this, I said, basically come back tonight, give me a chance to figure this out. And we did. They came back that night and we figured it out. But when I started seeing over there the fear, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's when I saw how this was impacting their lives. And same thing at like the FCA or Parker, there'll be 1,000 people. They're not excited about Medicare, right? This is not like, ooh, I can hardly wait for it. I even start my programs like, I knew you couldn't sleep last night for Medicare, right? And they all like, not really, but we kind of want, there's a fear base. And I want to remove that fear. Mm-hmm. Even my program is called Just Show Me What to Do. I take the fear out. And that was the nice part at the end. People go, this is all I have to do. I said, this is exactly what you need to do. I figured the solution. Mike, Jacklitch, and I did it. Just do this. And we made it super simple to do. And that's what changed everything, because they could actually apply it and do it. Not just some theory. There's an application that they could do, and they actually did. I found that with chiropractors, they really do care, right? They want to know. So that's what I call it. Just show me. They would say, just show me what they do, and I'll do it. Mm-hmm. And so that was the exciting part there. And thank you for letting me share that, because again, I don't really get that out. And I still see some people that do this compliance stuff that try to scare people. And it really hurts me, because there's no need for it. There's really no need. You can educate people, but you don't have to scare them.
Mm-hmm. So I know we don't have a whole lot of time left on our episode today, but I kind of want to go a lightning round with you so we can answer some of the core questions.
I'm ready. Hit it.
Where's the profession headed? Where do you see it going in the next decade, 2 decades?
We're going to dominate. In my world, we're going to dominate. We just have to have people believe it, because it's so set up for us to dominate right now. The pandemic opened up the entire world for us because people realized really what the other professions had to give, and our profession has everything to give. So I think we dominate.
Yes. And, when I meet people out, I told you I did like hundreds of screenings. And when I'd meet people, they'd be like, well, I don't believe in chiropractic. And you know what I say to them? Well, you know what a belief system is? Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny.
Yeah.
I say chiropractic is a healing art.
Exactly.
I was like, you don't have to believe in it for it to work.
No. And some of my best patients came in with their arms crossed, like, I don't believe you. And I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great. I knew once they got the magic, right, that they would just be my best patients. And they always were.
Once they get the big idea, all else follows.
And they get the results. We get the results. No, we're gonna dominate. That's where we're going.
Who are some of your heroes? Who has positioned you to become the man you are today?
Obviously, my father, my parents were big. My wife is truly amazing. Lou Sportelli. So I don't know if you know Lou Sportelli or not. He's actually been one of my heroes. And because I watched when I was young chiropractor in 1983, I saw him fighting back for my profession. And he was out there and he was on the big stage being attacked, the Wilkes Trust, all those different things. And I've watched him and we've become friends. I can email him all these different things, all the things I want to do. They had a real amazing tribute to him. I drove to Pittsburgh just to be there. So he's truly one of those chiropractors that was out there. And if you're going to be out there, like I had a couple of people say, you have some enemies. I'm like, yeah, if you're going to be doing anything and going big, not everyone's going to love you, right? But his passion and what he did for our profession, and at that tribute, his attorney that was always helping him, Lou would say, I know what the obstacles are, but I need to get to the solution. So we're similar in that I don't focus on obstacles. I focus on the solution. The obstacles are just kind of in my way, and I just make them on my way. So he's one of the people that touched me very early in my profession, and it has continued to be someone I truly look up to.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I hear stories of reverence towards people that have had influence on each other. And I love it when people mention their parents.
Yeah. I wouldn't be here. My mom's 91. I was with her last night. So, I mean, she's everything.
And I also love it when people recognize their significant other. So that's really cool too.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. My wife is she's just amazing chiropractor, and she and I are a team.
So I do like to close out our show with some type of like a miracle story for people to walk away.
Oh, you had it here, and I'm thinking, I don't know if I have the miracle. Where I helped a chiropractor. I can give my wife had one. A miracle chiropractic story?
Yeah.
So my wife had one. It's actually in a journal. So she had this young girl that came in. Her eyes had this amazing rare condition that the only surgeon that could help her was in California, and this is in Wisconsin. And so they had everything monitored with her eyes. I mean, in the local people, and she was just about ready to go out and have her surgery to save her eyes, and she fell in the snow and the ice. And so my wife started treating her with chiropractic. And amazingly, because they're monitoring, I mean, this is a before and after, right? They're monitoring everything with her eyes. And all of a sudden, they kept asking the parents, like, what's going on? And the parents were like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, everything's getting better. We're going to postpone the surgery. Everything is changing in this young girl. And the parents were like, well, we're taking the chiropractor. And they're like, well, no, that isn't it. They couldn't even accept that, but that was it. And the parents saw it. And so like, we don't know what you're doing, Dr. Cindy, but can you keep doing this? And so my wife kept treating, she was one of the first pediatric chiropractors. So she's really, really good with children. And she just kept doing her magic with this young child to the point where they actually canceled this surgery. They did not have to go to California. Her eyes became perfect. I mean, she came in for a fall, but she changed this little girl's life. Mm-hmm. And so and again, she put it in a journal and stuff like that. But that's one of those miracle things that who knows what happened to that little girl. She went out. If the surgery would have worked, she may have been blind, whatever it is. So here's someone through chiropractic now has a normal life and her eyes were normal. So that was kind of, I think, a very miracle story within our practice, one that I remember.
I mean, old school philosophy, the power that made the body heals the body. The body needs nothing extra in it, just simply no interference. When you clear up the interference in a neurological pattern, the body is a self-regulating organism. the lights get turned on, like people's lives change.
They
And I
do.
think that when you take the obstruction off of that C1, C2 area, the upper cervical stuff that chiropractors do, and adjust that power source at the brainstem, it changes people's lives
I agree.
and it changes their optics
It
and
changes everything.
everything.
Yeah. I mean, we all have just so many different things that we've helped people. Headaches for 30 years and they're gone. I had one lady who'd seen, I don't know, 60 chiropractors. Her spine looked like bamboo. One adjustment, she was pain-free. You're like, great, so it's amazing the different levels of people you can help. But again, it's rare when we don't help someone, but we work our heart out to make sure we do everything we can for every patient who walks in our clinic. That's the power of chiropractic.
Well, many of these people have never been touched
Right.
until they see a chiropractor. They've never been touched by a doctor. So I think that's compelling for like the profession. Is I have a friend of mine, Peter Morgan, that's done like 115 mission trips down to Haiti in the Dominican Republic. And down there, they call them the touch healers.
Oh, yeah, because all of a sudden you're in and everything's changing.
Yeah, you touch and they heal.
Yeah. We just have to have that next generation have the passion, purpose, and I see it coming out of them because they didn't went in. They went in not for money. They went in for passion, purpose. So I see our profession doing extremely, extremely well. We just have to help them financially, make sure that they can survive that part, which I always tell them. I said, you don't have a debt. You invested in a career. They kept saying, I have all this debt. I go, no, you don't.
You have an investment.
Yeah. And I said, no, you invested in a career. You got a career. I said, yeah. You don't invest in a house, right? Right. So well, sometimes you do, and you get money back, but it's really investing in a career. So you just got to change that mindset, get them going. And I think we're just going to do great.
Well, Dr. Stephen, is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with our audience before we call it an evening?
No, I don't think so. It's been a fun evening for me. I didn't know what to expect. Again, this has been thoroughly enjoyable for me. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, if people want to get in touch with you, where can we send them to?
My social media. So the easiest place to find me if they do need help on things is ChiroLaw@AOL.com. I'm still old school with AOL. Or the Chiropractic Society of Wisconsin. It's an amazing chiropractic group in Wisconsin. I'm the executive director there. That's the best place to find me. And then they can see all the wonderful stuff. Maybe you can get some of our team on and we can talk about what we're doing up here on that. But that's the other way to find me.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself and how you've gone to protect the sacred trust and protect the future of this profession and supporting it with your time, talent, and treasure.
Thank you so much for this time.
Yeah. So I'm going to close out by telling everyone out there, you're just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye for now, Doc.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.